So what does good look like? It seems to me that the components of good are fairly simple. If they weren't, you couldn't do it. You have a proper risk management system. Let me emphasise again, in terms of health and safety, you need a common yardstick. You need a common approach to the management of health and safety. It doesn't matter whether it's an MSD, whether it's DSE manual handling, whether it's work equipment, whether it's chemical safety. It doesn't matter what it is. It should be a common approach. And that is really important. If you view DSE and manual handling as different, as separate from, as a bolt-on, you'll fail. You won't convince senior managers, you won't convince them that it's actually part of what you do. I cannot emphasise enough the importance of records. Genuinely, the assumption is if there is no record, it didn't happen. And if the records are outdated, that also gives you a problem. Now people ask, what does an outdated record look like? There is no real clear guidance. My experience would be between 1 and 2 years is probably okay. Outside of 2 years is a bit worrying. People say, oh, we should only keep records for 3 years. That's based upon a notion from the civil courts, which is the time that you have to make a claim. And the time you have to make a claim is typically 3 years. But it's actually 3 years from the point at which you knew the thing that you had a problem with, the injury was caused by the thing that you think caused it. So for things like back injuries and things like neck injuries, actually this period is 3 years from the point at which somebody says your bad back was caused by lifting boxes 5 years ago. So genuinely, my advice is, now we've got computerised records, do you know what? Never throw them away, keep them, file them, have them so that they are recoverable, so put them into a proper database, but basically make sure you've got them. I would say that of the claims that I get involved with, if I'm representing the defendant, the ones that we are successful in always have really good record management systems, and the ones that fail don't have record management systems. I also think you need to have competent people. Now, there's a huge debate about what a competent person is. It's probably somebody who has got some level of training, that looks as though it's appropriate. It's probably somebody who understands the job. It's probably somebody who is internal to your organisation. There was a huge change to the management regulations in 1999, following a case against Sainsbury's in Basingstoke, where a guy was killed, and the prosecution of Sainsbury's, which was a successful prosecution, during that prosecution there was massive criticism of the health and safety executive about organisations that had external people coming in or internal people who weren't competent. So the management regs were changed by the HSE in 1999, and they now emphasise the importance of having internal competent people. In terms of MSDs, absolutely, early intervention is critical. If somebody presents himself with a condition within a few days of experiencing it, you're going to have a number of advantages. First of all, you've got a sporting chance of figuring out what actually caused that problem. You've got a sporting chance of changing that. You've got a sporting chance of dealing with it. If they suffer for months and only become a problem when they take significant time off work, do you know what? They might come back and you might at best be managing the time between episodes. It's really important that people do go off. You have a strategy for managing them back to work. Let me say again, fitness to work is not a binary state. It's a big long grey scale. So you want people back to work as quickly as possible. If they've got an MSD, if they say, you know, I've got real problems here on my wrist, or I've got real problems with my back, the biggest thing that you can offer them is an opportunity to come back to work. Now that might not be full time, it might not be doing the job that they were doing before, but you ought to have some sort of proper thought through back to work strategy. And let me say for a second time, it's about managers who care. Show me that you care. Because actually, if I look at that, that seems to me to be what a good organisation would look like. And the components of that are not massively expensive, they're not massively complicated, but they basically will provide a robust system I believe that you should start off by knowing what MSDs are costing you now, what your management strategy is right now, what it's costing you. I also think that actually, if you look at that, if you take it out of MSDs and go, that's what health and safety, that's what good looks like. And it seems to me that that's where we should be shooting for. Now there are loads of tools, but just sort of a final thought. It seems to me that there are 5 components of good. The first is that by and large you have competent people. And that means people who are trained to do the jobs you want them to do. That means, this is in terms of doing assessments, this is in terms of people who work for you. This is basically people who are demonstrably competent in terms of, when they do this job, we have trained them this way, they've had this level of experience, we've done this to support them. You would want a way of capturing the equipment and the workplace as being fit for purpose. So you don't want people sitting in broken chairs. You don't want people using keyboards that were first used by Noah or the rock monsters, depending upon what you see when you watch the film. You don't want people using stuff that is inappropriate. Likewise, you don't want them using everything because it's there. You don't want them, if they're 6 foot, using a footrest. So you want to make sure that the equipment in the workplaces are fit for purpose. If you identify that things are less good, you need to put in place controls. And those controls need to be appropriate. And here we talk about proportionality, and in terms of reasonable practicability, these controls need to be proportionate to the risk, and they need to be reasonably practicable. So what we're saying is, if somebody has a minor complaint about an office and they want the lighting stripped out and redone, and that's going to cost you 100 grand, trust me, no individual is worth it. Obviously unless you're the CEO of Google or whatever. But the notion that says, do you know what, proportionality matters. But if you've got somebody who's 5 foot nothing, sitting at a 720 high desk, and they haven't got a footrest, do you know what? It's a minor investment. So it's about making sure that you've got the right controls. It is about making sure that people work the way they're supposed to. An organisation called Institution of Occupational Safety and Health, IOSH, have just finished a research study. They've had a research study running at Derby University, looking at how people work and basically how they get up. And what they find is that one of the biggest things that people can do is to take the breaks they're supposed to, which we knew 20 odd years ago. But actually knowing that people who are supposed to break every hour, every 2 hours, knowing that they regularly don't do that, or knowing that when they break straight onto the internet. I'm going to have my break now. I'm just going to go on the internet and just see what's happening on Facebook and stuff. People working the way they're supposed to is actually, coming back to the DSE regulations, it's about managers managing. And absolutely, people should understand and should believe that managers care. What does that look like? It says, if I go to my manager to say I've got a problem, I think I might be getting an MSD. It's about thinking that I'll be treated sympathetically, I won't lose my job, I won't be demoted, I actually will be properly referred, properly treated, and there will be no consequence for me in my career. So I think those 5 things, those 5 components, are what you should all be shooting for. Competent people, equipment and workplaces fit for purpose, appropriate controls, people working how they're supposed to, in the knowledge that managers care.